Hello, world. Welcome back to the Two Average Brownbros podcast. I'm your host, Brashank,
And I'm your host, Andres.
and today is March 22nd, 2021, and it's a Monday. How are you, Andres?
I am doing great. It's been pretty lovely lately with the weather, so cannot really complain on that part since it's March, so it's lovely. But I'm doing well. How are you doing, Prashant?
Oh, I'm loving, I'm not a winter person, so having this positive, I think we had like positive 12 today, it was amazing.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. It's so nice that it's been in the positives so often, and not even like just the low positives. Like we're getting over 10 degrees. So that is just fantastic. Like I'm here for it.
Same here. Have you been going on walks with Sherlock recently?
Oh yeah, we go almost every day to the river, and he loves it. Though I hate it because when we get back, I need to give him a little bit of a rinse so that he does not mess up with my carpets.
Does he enjoy the bath?
He tolerates the idea of the bath, but when it's dry time, he thinks it's playtime. So it's a little bit of fun, but things that comes with having a dog. What you been up to? You've been going outside a lot, Bershang?
Yeah, I've been going out here and there more than often. On Friday, or I guess yesterday, Sunday was my friend's birthday, but we actually went to grab something on Friday. So grabbed some food with him, then went to like a local dessert place. And I don't know if I've told you, but like I started this detox back in first week of January,
Okay.
where I stopped eating like fatty foods, greasy foods, sugary foods, because I have a big sweet tooth,
Okay.
all that, and like most of it's going pretty well. The only thing that gets me is sugar. Like I still love my lava cakes and chocolate cakes.
Yeah.
I did have cake for the first time since my birthday, I think so.
Wow, that's a long time. Like, how do you even go that long without, like, especially if you have a sweet tooth? Like, what are you doing so that you don't give in to your cravings?
That's honestly be the hard. Like I have cheat days, which helps. So like once a week, I'll have like Nutella on like waffles or like Nutella on toast.
Okay.
But other than that, like before, I used to have like chocolate every other day. I can finish a whole chocolate bar by myself, but I've been trying to resist that. It's hard. It's tough.
I can only imagine, but congrats to you, man, that you're able to to do that.
No, thanks. Like, I mean, it is what it is. Gotta look out for your body, right? So,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we're also in Lent right now as like a person who was raised Catholic. So I understand what you're going through. So
oh, so what are you gonna give up on Lent this year then?
oh my God, what did I give up already for Lent? I gave up all fast food. So I'm a big McDonald's person. So
Me too.
chicken nuggets on Fridays while I watch Drag Race is no longer a thing. And then I also gave up drinking, which I also enjoy my glass of wine or my beer from time to time. Drink responsibly. But yeah, so it's been all right. I'm used like giving up something every year throughout Lent.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I haven't drink much this year at all. I think I drank like once or twice, and that was wine. Come with that dinner. But how's that going for you?
It's going all right. I mean, it is definitely that like adulthood and work. Sometimes it's just like you just finish your day and it's like, you know what? I just need to relax and have a beer or relax and have a glass of wine. And now it's just like, fine, I'll relax and have a glass of water. So it's basically not the same, but it kind of like gives you that peace of mind that you're like pushing yourself to like different limits.
So let's move on to the first segment of the podcast, shall we?
I think we shall do that.
All right. What did you learn this week, Andreas?
Well, Brishang, last week, like I told everyone, you introduced me to Clubhouse. So for the past week, part of it, I have to say that I hate you because you made me addicted to Clubhouse. Because literally, I'm there every day. And honestly, it's been such an interesting experience connecting with different people, like not only across Canada, but also like some Latin people in the States and joining some of the clubs back home in Mexico. It's been quite an interesting experience. I'm more of an introvert person, so really putting myself out there and talking, it's like, oh my God, that is very shocking. But been really enjoying it, been really having some pretty good conversations, meeting some pretty cool people, and just sometimes learning. But basically, it's been good. It's nice to kind of like, it's a new way to network for us millennials. So I will say that's kind of like one of the big things I've learned for the past week. How about you, Bershang? What you've been up to?
It's funny you mentioned Clubhouse because I showed that to my cousin recently and she fell in love with it too. She's been going on it like every day. So I'm glad I'm getting people addicted to another social media.
Thanks, Bershang.
One thing I learned this week was that, so this was on Reddit. I love going on Reddit and just reading whatever I can find on Reddit. It's my main source of news, whether that's good or bad. Probably not good, but like it's an aggregation of everything else.
Yeah.
But they posted something and it said, well, it was an article to a CNN article from back in 2019 that said Microsoft tried the 4-day work week in Japan and productivity jumped 40%, which piqued my interest because, weekends feel so short these days. Like, I don't know how you feel, but a 2-day weekend is too short for me these days.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just like whenever I work 5-day weeks, like whenever the weekend just goes by so fast. And no, I can see why productivity will spike when you have 4-day weeks. Like, you have to get your work done in 4 days, but then you have 3 days to relax and actually gives you something, because usually it's like, okay, one day I have to like, I kind of like can keep it to myself, but then the next day either you have to clean or you have to meal prep or you have to run all the errands that you couldn't run throughout the week. So I'm a big advocate for different work structures.
Yeah, exactly. So like they actually tested this in Japan where, they have a culture of like overworking. So they did it to, I think 2,200 employees in Japan. And they said it worked out for them really well because they cut down meetings from like, hour long to 30-minute meetings. And like, they just worked more efficiently. And I think most like North American companies need to go towards this because life isn't just all about working. Like if you think about it, you're working for like 5 days a week, 8 hours a day for most, like the average person, that's 40 hours a week. And then you throw in sleep in there. So 8 times, another 40 hours for work, 40 hours for sleep, and the rest, to do other fun stuff. So clearly not enough. So having that third day on the weekend would be amazing.
Oh, hands down. And so like it just liberates your time. And like you said, life is not all about working. Like, yeah, you need to work so that you are able to earn some money. And this is just like the culture that you're raised about work. But I do believe that, like you said, like generationally, we're now like in our generation in which we understand the concept of work, but we also are starting to see ways and trying to implement things that, like you said, are more efficient. It's not like we're not doing the work. It's not that we're not getting things done. It's just we're just trying to make it in a way that it's more efficient so that we're able to do other things. If anything, I do feel like some of us are like a pretty busy generation because we have our work, but then we also have our social settings. And then a lot of people now are pursuing side hustles, right? Or they have side businesses or interests that they want to pursue in a more professional way.
I agree with you there for sure.
I think it's just like we're in a different mindset, but we do need to also understand that we're still like in that culture that you work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, but things will slowly, I hope they will start changing, especially as we've been navigating the pandemic. A lot of those work structures have shown that there's more efficient ways to do it. So I just hope more people are on board and want to take the chance on trying things out.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you, and I hope we see that sometime in the next decade, or even if it's way before then, I'd love it in the next year. So
if it can happen, next fall, we will love it even more.
Oh yeah, we'll be right back. So this week's feature topic for myself, Andres, is The shooting that happened in Atlanta. I don't know if you heard about that.
I did hear about that. And Brishank, I was gonna say that that's also something that has been on my mind since it happened. And like, I mean, it pops up on social media quite a lot and on the news and everything. So I'm glad you decided to bring it up.
All right. So I guess for me, you know, it's on my mind because like I've lived in the U.S. and I lived in the U.S. when that Virginia Tech shooting happened back in 2007. I think it was. I don't know if
Mhm.
you remember that one, but it was like a Korean perpetrator who shot and sadly killed 27 or so students and professors, right?
Yeah.
So living, having been in the US and living, seeing it not up close because I have never witnessed it myself, but like hearing it from my friends and stuff, we used to have lockdown drills all the time in the US, and that was just a thing that we did, right? But moving to Canada in high school, I think we did lockdown drills like once a year, but in the US, it's like once a month. You have to do lockdown drills all the time.
Hmm.
And then seeing, last couple of years of shootings in like the school in Connecticut or the shooting in the Orlando nightclub, it's just gun violence and, bigotry is just rampant. And it's not just in the US, like you see it everywhere, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's not an isolated thing. And that's kind of like the main message that I see is just like we're just seeing symptoms of what's happening. And I don't know, but for me, it is just that reminder of that there are people like that out there. Like, yeah, this is like huge news and everyone is paying attention to it. But there's other things that are happening around us that either people are not getting called out for, or the way that it's being portrayed, or the words that are being used to describe certain incidents are not the right words. And I think that's kind of like the part that mainly, in a certain way, makes me react very instinctively and like in like it does things to myself when I think of the way that it's sometimes being portrayed. We know what it was. Like it was a mass shooting, and we know or we suspect that the reasons behind it, but the way that people are calling it or trying to make excuses for the behavior of a person, it is not right. And that's kind of like, for me, that's where that place of anger comes from. It is just like, why for certain people we call it a certain way, but in this situation it's allowed to say like, oh, he was having a bad day.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. Like, it just enrages me because it's true though. Like, we're all thinking it. If it was any other, race, it would have been labeled as something X, Y, and Z, But right now it's saying, oh, he was having a bad day, so he did that. But which I plain wrong. Like, we know his motive. Like, most likely we know his motives, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's no way out there to see it. If you say anything else, that's pretty ignorant. It's either being ignorant or being naive. So
Oh yeah, I know. And it's just like I said, it's just like it's not an isolated thing. And like you mentioned, like things like this happen. It's sad that things like this have become like such a recurring thing, like year by year, month by month, that we hear up in the news. But once again, it's just like that targeting of like a certain particular minority group. When it was Orlando, it was targeting the LGBTQ community. I don't remember the place exactly of the one that happened. I'm pretty sure in Texas, but that was targeted towards Hispanic people because that's like the messaging that was coming across at that time. And now, because we're in the middle of a pandemic, it seems targeted towards people of like Asian descent. So it's just not isolated incidents. But oh yeah, I know. And it's just like I said, it's just like it's not an isolated thing. And like you mentioned, like things like this happen. It's sad that things like this have become like such a recurring thing, like year by year, month by month, that we hear up in the news. But once again, it's just like that targeting of like a certain particular minority group. When it was Orlando, it was targeting the LGBTQ community. I don't remember the place exactly of the one that happened. I'm pretty sure in Texas, but that was targeted towards Hispanic people because that's like the messaging that was coming across at that time. And now, because we're in the middle of a pandemic, it seems targeted towards people of like Asian descent. So it's just not isolated incidents, but
oh yeah, exactly. And that's where I wanted to like I don't want to fully focus on the shooting itself because that's very sad. But like, I don't want to, like, we hear about that every day, so
Yeah.
let's not amplify that anymore. But like, I guess two things I want to hear from you, and like I'll voice my thing too, is one, like in Canada alone, have you ever felt like, hatred towards you or like someone being racist towards you? And on the other side, where are like places that you found like community resources or like, where you've had dialogue with other people to, educate or raise awareness to what, you as a Hispanic person, me as an Asian, person, how have you felt in those regards?
Absolutely. I feel as a Latino, for me, in terms of like experiencing racism or discrimination, pretty out loud, it's not that I face it. Like, yeah, there's sometimes to time comments that I hear about things or people just being blatantly ignorant of what it is to be living in Latin America. Um, there was like this one time in university, I was sitting down having lunch, and this one girl like just out loud was like, "Oh my God, do they have universities in Mexico even?" And I was like, "Yes, yes, we do. Like we have some of the pretty good best universities all Latin America." So that is just blatant ignorance. Uh, but I think like for myself, and I don't know for other minorities, for me, a lot of what I experience up here sometimes are aggressions, like people doing little things that either they're doing it because they don't know better or they're actually doing it to target people. But it's just those like expressions of like those microaggressions that I see from day to day, or like every so often, like if I go to the grocery store and someone gives me like a side look, it's just like, why are you looking me that way? Is it because of the item I'm grabbing? Is it because of the way I'm dressing, or is it because just of the color of my skin? You know, so it's just those tiny microaggressions that you sometimes experience on the daily that you learn to brush off. But the thing like I found helpful for me is just voicing them out, expressing like when they're getting pretty blunt, saying like that's wrong, calling it out, and sometimes calling it out also on friends and being like, hey, that's not good, you should not be saying that. And just having that sense of a Latino community and going and staying together as like the community that we are. And I find support in all of my friends. I find support back home. And usually it's just the people near me that whenever like things like that get at me, those are the people that I usually go to. How about you, Rishang? Like what has been your experience with dealing with some of these topics? Like have you experienced it? What did that look like for you? And what do you do about it?
Yeah, so for me, like I don't like looking back, might be forgetting, but I don't think I've, like you said, I've never felt like direct racism where someone's be like, go back to your country, like, what we hear on the news or read all the time. I've never faced that myself, but more of mine things is like just like you said, the smaller things. Like, so when I used to work for one of my former employers, I used to have to go to small towns in Saskatchewan, drive because we'd have to do inspections around the highways, and we'd have to stop at small towns, where the population is only 500, and literally everyone living in that town is white, and they haven't seen many other colors or many other, cultures around. So, and they all look at you like, funny. I don't want to characterize the way they look at me, but like at the same time, it's like they know, like we know when we're getting judged, So that's like I've felt that going to these smaller towns where they'll be like staring at you the whole time, or like just looking at you differently. I guess that's the best way to put it. And while, at that moment, I really can't do anything because I'm still working, I'm trying to get a job done. If I could, two of my, main things, I don't know if people will agree, will disagree with me, but two things that need to happen to, make the world better in these regards is education and raising awareness. So a lot of these people that live in these small towns, they don't know what the outside world is, right? They've been
Yeah.
living in that town. They're born there, raised there. And whereas we, like you and I, Andreas, we've seen much of the world, right? We've met so many people from every fabric, every land on this earth. And
Mm-hmm.
while as much as we could say, oh, they're being racist, it's like, are they actually racist, or were they just not educated, or do they just lack the awareness of the global things that we've seen, right?
Yes.
So if there was any way to like raise awareness to these people and then educate them, hey, let's do that. Like that's a first step in any other things. But besides that, I think we need to, you know, and with that comes along providing community resources as well as just having that dialogue with different people, whether it's like, setting up, like actually going and talking to them. Because most of the time, they're small town folks are possibly the nicest, most hospitable people ever, but they
Mm-hmm.
just don't know, right? They just don't know. Like that, it's like if I see people that I've never seen before, I'm gonna be like, oh wow, I've never seen these people before. I wonder what they do. Like, but it's the same thing with them. Like they've never seen people like me before, and all it takes is a little bit of like talking to them, and I think that's where it all starts. And in the case of every news events that happen throughout the world regarding racism, a lot of the people are ignorant, and ignorance I don't think you can change. So like, how do you get through the ignorance? I think it starts young, right? Like all these people, like they weren't like I personally don't believe humans are born racist because
Oh
we're all
no.
human at the end of the day. But it's like something that you're brought up on. So if it can be learned, it can be unlearned, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, like you're speaking the truth over here.
But yeah, that's the way I feel. Like I know, like even last year with the whole George Floyd murder and black shootings in America, like racism is rampant. And you're right, it's not just something that happens in America. I mean, even in Nepal, we Nepal, China, India. People want fairer skin because people with darker skin are like looked down upon. I don't know if that's the same in Mexico, but that's true in like most of Asia.
Oh, it is absolutely. I think it's just like it comes down to kind of like at the end of the day, I think it does come down to the way that it has been put into culture and into the way that we're being raised. That sometimes fair skin is better. I've have experienced that also in Mexico. Uh, People do see that, and people that even have darker skin than I do, they do experience a lot more of those things. And like you said, like if we were able to learn that, there's a way to unlearn it. If it has to go way deeper than just a superficial level, right? Like when we're talking about things at this level, it's just like the education needs to happen way further down. But absolutely, I do believe no one is born racist. Like you're taught those ideals, you're taught those morals and values. So I think what we can do best is just kind of like what is happening right now is just we're bringing those issues up to light. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of us, people of color and people who we experience some of these issues, we're finally saying like, you know what, I'm tired of this, and I'm just not going to have my voice silenced anymore, and I'm just going to speak up. And I think that's the best way that we can deal with it right now, is just making sure that the people around us, our friends, our family, uh, co-workers, and then as soon as it gets like being escalated up the societal ladder, right? It's just that part of speaking up and letting people know these are issues. We're in 2021, and this should not be happening anymore. But let's change it in order for us to be able to be more inclusive, in order for us to be able to really, really like celebrate the diversity and the multiculturalism that we have. Because if anything, I think that's something that I value quite a lot, is just the diversity and multiculturalism that you get from exploring different cultures, that you get from people from different parts of the world. And I think that's something that we should be embracing. And honestly, when it comes to your place of origin, where you were raised, or the color of your skin, is like, at least for me, it's the last thing that matters, because I value you as a human, I value you as a person, and what you bring as that. The rest are just genetics, and you cannot really help your genetics at the end of the day.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. We're all human at the end of the day, and let's treat each other as equals.
Yeah, that's it. It's just like it's so common sense that sometimes it like blows my mind that such a simple concept it's just like it just gets lost in translation, and people think differently of that just simple phrase, right? Like people will think about that phrase that you just said in so many different ways because we're all different and unique. But I think when people take it to the extremes is when we start seeing some of these behaviors that are that are not okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you know what they say these days, right? Common sense ain't so common anymore.
Oh no, you have to literally go find it under the rock, probably in the middle of the Quapel Valley. I think this, like I said, it's not one time, it's not a novelty, which is sad because we hear about it. But I think, like you mentioned, like rather than focusing somewhere else, let's focus where we are at. What does that look like over here in Saskatchewan? What does that look like over here in Canada? And what we are doing, because it might be a little bit harsh to hear, but we ain't perfect up north over here. So I think for us is like taking that, translating it to our environment, to our surroundings, and then starting having that conversation. And I think that's something that we can actually do better as people who we live in Canada. We can actually start the dialogue. We can actually start that conversation in order to get us to a place where everyone feels like everyone feels included. At the same time, you know what? I'm just going to say it, call it as it is. Like we should stop being afraid of calling things of what they are and calling it how it is. Yeah, it might be a little bit harsh to like say it out the throat, but that is because you're having a reaction to it. You're having like that visceral reaction, which is like the most organic of reactions that you can have when things like this happen. So sorry, but if you don't feel anything of like kind of like what is happening right now, then I don't know. I don't know what else, but just thinking upon yourself as well, like I think like for everyone listening, thinking of kind of like what are some of the behaviors that we do individually that maybe we should change, or maybe we should look a little bit more into and be like, ooh, maybe I should stop doing that because it can do this, or like it's actually not the best way to go about things. So taking it as a like individual reflection, but at the same time reflecting on kind of like what our surroundings are and taking some action. I think that's the best part of it. Just like if you see it, take some action and just don't stay silent, because otherwise you just become a bystander to a situation.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's not just looking at other countries and be like, oh, it's like that down there. Of course, we can use America as an example every day, all day. That's because they have 350 million people down there. But Canada, we have our own racism up here too. Like Indigenous people feel targeted all the time, and rightly so, because they've been through such a tough time throughout history. And like even Japanese people, Chinese people, and Indian people, even Jagmeet Singh, the NDP leader, he gets, we'll get into that in another episode, but
Yes.
like he's been faced with lots of racist remarks all the time, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just looking at other countries and other people be like, oh, it's like that down there, we'll never have that. No, that's completely wrong. That's being naive right there, because Canada is full of racists too. But it's up to us to look at ourselves, guide the ones around our community, in our hometown, in our community, or in around us, and let's do better.
Exactly. That's the best thing. And I think, yeah, no, you said it well, Prashank, I think.
All right, Andreas, that was a really good conversation. I enjoyed that because it's so relevant to, both of us being men of color. So I hope we can, even if like that's a goal with our podcast, we're not trying to change the whole world, but even if we can change like one person, and their mind and their attitude, I think we'll come out like on top every day.
Absolutely. And I think also like kind of like the purpose of why we decided to start a little bit of this, at least for myself, is just bringing that POC point of view, kind of like how two guys of brown skin see this. What is like our point of view based on the way that we were raised and everything that we bring behind, right? Like I bring my Hispanic culture and that I was raised in a different country, and you bring your own experiences and your own background into it. And I think that's what makes it a little bit more unique, is like we're bringing a different point of view. But I absolutely love that conversation. It was so lovely. And it's just nice to explore some of those topics. Sometimes in life, it can be sometimes some of those hard conversations, but from conversations like that is like when actually we can start like thinking and experiencing change. And I think that's a note that I want to like wrap up this conversation and wrap up our this week's episode on kind of like what can we do in order like to kind of like change, like what does change look like from like for us moving forward, kind of like what does this inspire and motivate on us as we move forward. So let's start with you, Rishank.
I agree with you. Come back to me because I'm still thinking. You go first.
Okay, sounds good. I think for me, it's just like, at first, like, I usually try to keep my opinions to myself and really just, I'm more about like, you do your life and that's it. I think for me, part of that change is just really being an advocate for things that truly matter to me and calling out when things are not right. I think it was like in another day on a club on Clubhouse, I was saying sometimes the right thing, it is the hardest thing to do because everyone else is in a different path. And if you have to start your own path, but you're doing the right thing, just keep on going. Because even though others are going a different direction, you're going on the direction you have to go because it's the right thing to do. And that goes like with friendship, that with relationships, and with every single thing we do in our lives. So I think for me, part of that change is going to look like a little bit more standing up, using as much as I can the voice that I can in order to raise awareness, not only like to the current events and people kind of like having them think, but also kind of like getting a little bit more involved in things that are happening back home, paying a little bit more attention and bringing attention to some of the issues that, even though I am thousands of kilometers away, as someone that is seeing now those issues back home from outside and not immersed on them, giving my perspective and giving kind of like the point of view of like, hey, you all Mexicans down there, we can do different. We can actually create some change, even like from kilometers away from home.
Yep, I agree with you fully. Like, what they say sometimes, it's like sometimes our right path is not always the easiest, like if you have a bunch of people saying one thing, but it's wrong, like I think it's as hard as it can be sometimes, it's better to speak up because later down the road, you're going to realize, hey, yeah, that was the right thing to do, and at the moment, your friends might hate you for like going against them, but I think eventually you're going to become the better and bigger person. So, like you said, go down the path that you feel is the right, and then the rest will just come naturally.
You know what? Take the high road. We don't always kind of have to go low. Just take the high road when it comes to things like that.
Anyway, we'll end that topic there. What are you looking forward to this upcoming week, Andreas?
This upcoming week, so like I mentioned last week, I was planning on starting my spring cleaning. I did get started a little bit, but I'm nowhere close to be done. So I think that's kind of like what I'm looking forward for this week, is just starting to make a little bit more progress. Like literally there's boxes everywhere. So I'm glad we're not doing this in video so that nobody can see the mess sometimes of boxes that I have around myself. But I'm like looking forward to getting a lot more done on the spring cleaning. And then, there was something else I was looking forward to. It completely like just went off my mind. So if I remember, I'll say it after you. But if not, what I'm looking forward is to finally be able to clean this apartment.
That's fair enough.
What about you, Brishang? What's coming up for you this week?
So this week I'm looking, well, as you know, I'm a big sports fan, but in the last couple, I guess now, where has time gone? In the last 6 years, I guess, I've been getting back into watching cricket. So I watch lots of cricket, especially New Zealand cricket, because, that's where I grew up watching cricket. So even at the time of this recording, I have cricket on the background. There's 3 games this week, tonight, on Monday, and then Thursday and Saturday. New Zealand's playing Bangladesh, so I'm looking forward to that. great weather, like we said earlier. Great weather, love great weather. Positive weather for me is great weather. So, and then for work, I have to go on the field. So, yay, field work. I don't say that sarcastically because I do love field work. It's one of my favorite parts of work because you're actually on the field, doing different things, not just cooped up in your room on a chair.
Yes.
So I get to drive up to Melville and look at that train station there, which is pretty cool. But besides that, March is almost ending. And then April will be here. And then before you know it, it's going to be plus 20, 30. I'll love life.
A completely different life. I remember what I was looking forward now. The second thing is
What is it?
The second thing I'm looking forward is doing a little bit of pet shopping because Sherlock's adoption anniversary is coming up. So I want to give him a couple of gifts. I know it's almost been a year since I've had him. It's wild. It's wild that it's almost been a year. And then the other thing is to finally get my taxes together and get them sorted out. Because, it's tax season. So everyone, please do your taxes. But yeah, I'm excited to get that sorted out and get that refund because, we like when the government gives us money.
It's funny you mentioned taxes because I had an interesting call with CRA, but that'll be our topic for next week.
Yes, good old CRA.
All right, that wraps up today's episode, Andres. I enjoyed the conversation. It was really enlightening, and I feel like we all learned a lot. Even if you didn't, then you just heard us talk and talk and talk. Thanks for listening to the whole thing.
Exactly. Thanks for tuning in. Like Prashank said, we hope you took something out of this conversation. And we're glad that you're listening to us. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening. We appreciate your feedback, your suggestions. So slide into our DMs over at Instagram at 2AverageBrownBros. And if you have any suggestions, feedback, any topics that you want us to talk about, just let us know and we'll take them up and we'll definitely talk about it because like we mentioned before, this podcast is about everything and anything and we'll talk about it.
As my science teacher back in grade 9 used to say, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or crybaby stuff, please let us know on our Instagram page.
And that is the end of this week's episode. So we'll catch you up next week.
Have an amazing week.
And we'll see you all later. Bye.
See ya.